My name is Elvia Guerrero, and this is my Art 200 final project. I did mine on Vincent van Gogh. Vincent van Gogh was born on March 30th, 1853, in the Brabant village of Zundert. He was the eldest of 5 siblings. His father was a Protestant minister. At the age of 13, Vincent quit school through his second academic year. Vincent never went back to school. At the age of 16, Vincent started working as a trainee at the international art dealer gogh. His uncle Cent had found him this job. Cent was short for Vincent. In 1873, Vincent was transferred to Gogh's London branch. Also in 1873, his younger brother Theo started working for Gough as well. Vincent became very religious during his time in London. He admired peasant painters such as Francois Millet and Jules Breton. He visited famous institutions like the British Museum and the National Gallery. He wrote letters to his brother Theo about Bible quotes and church services he attended. Vincent was interested in art, but not for his job at the art firm. In 1876, Gough let him go. Vincent returned to England, where he worked as an unpaid assistant teacher at a boys' boarding school. He then found a paying position at a private school, where he was allowed to preach, but the job offered very few opportunities for Van Gogh. In January 1876, Vincent's uncle got him a different job at a bookstore. At the age of 24, Vincent didn't have any interest or have a purpose in his life. He hadn't chosen what he wanted to do as far as a job or career. He tried going back to school for theology. Then a couple months later, he lost interest once again. He began working as a lay preacher in Amsterdam. In 1880, Vincent moved to Brussels, where he began to draw and started communicating with other artists. At this time, he had no paying job. His brother Theo would send him money from time to time so he can get by. Vincent began taking lessons in the Hague, which was an art gallery, by his cousin Anton. Anton taught Vincent the basics of paintings in watercolor and oil paintings as well. He visited his studio almost every day. In 1882, Van Gogh met Sion Horneck, who was his model and his lover also. His family didn't approve of this affair. She had a 5-year-old child and a baby on the way. This child did not belong to Van Gogh. Vincent moved in with Horneck to a small studio where they lived together. Van Gogh realized it wasn't working out, so they broke off their relationship. Van Gogh was inspired by new artists, which he was introduced to by his brother Theo. Claude Monet, which his work was colorful, as well as he was a prominent artist. Henri de Toulouse-Lautrec, and Emile Bernard. These artists had influence on his new work, and he got inspired to experiment freely. He began using brighter colors because before he was into dark colors when he would paint or do portraits. Van Gogh developed his own style of painting with short brush strokes. He began to paint rural laborers, cafes, and boulevards, what he was most interested in, as well as countrysides, commercial subjects, and portraits. His brother and him began collecting Japanese woodcuts, cropping and colored contrasts, which were also shown in his work. and they also became avid collectors of Japanese woodcuts. Van Gogh left France and on the Van Gogh left France and on the train traveled one day and one night. Then he arrived to the town of Arles, which was south of France. There he rented a 4 rooms in a yellow house, which in these 4 rooms he had artists move in with him, inspiring artists, which rented out the other rooms, and he wanted to set a studio up here as well. Him and another artist, Paul Gauguin, started painting together. They disagreed and argued a lot. In one of these discussions, Van Gogh slit his ear so Gauguin wouldn't leave, because Gauguin wanted nothing to do with Van Gogh anymore and didn't want to paint with him. Their styles were totally different. Van Gogh was then admitted to the hospital where his brother visited. After this incident, Van Gogh checked himself into a psychiatric hospital, St. Remy. He continued to live there, where he continued to paint indoors and outdoors. They gave him his own little room as well, so he would do all of his paintings. Van Gogh sent them Theo had a son which they named indoors and outdoors. Theo had a son which they named after him. Van Gogh sent them a painting to the hospital, to him and his wife Jo, of an almond blossom against a blue sky. And he saw this outside of the psychiatric hospital he was staying at. So he wanted to paint this and send it to his brother. Van Gogh's paintings were shown in Brussels in 1890 in an exhibition. His brother had been submitting his paintings since 1888. An art critic, Albert Aurier, had published positive articles about Van Gogh. His paintings, The Red Vineyard, was sold during this show. In 1890, Van Gogh moved closer to his brother in Paris. He moved to a lodge with other artists. There was a doctor nearby. His name was Dr. Gadget, who would help him if he needed it, or if he was feeling sad, depressed, and so forth. Theo Van Gogh's brother let him know he was thinking about quitting his job at the art dealer to begin his own business. Van Gogh wasn't very happy about this, because he was the one who was helping him with money and supporting him throughout his whole career, as far as him being an artist. Van Gogh became very sick again, with the fear of not having money and being supported from his brother. He drew his last 3 paintings and sent them to his brother, and included a letter to Theo. On July 27th, 1890, Van Gogh walked into a wheat field and shot himself in the chest. He then proceeded to go back to his room in the yellow house. And his brother took the train back to be at his side and was present when Van Gogh died of his injuries. Van Gogh painted throughout his entire career 850 paintings and 1,300 on paper. This was one of Vincent van Gogh's portraits. It was in 1889, an oil on canvas. This woman was in a coffee house in Arles, where Van Gogh last lived before he passed away. His friend Paul Gauguin also painted a portrait of this woman in a coffee house, which is shown in our textbook. That's where I got this painting from, actually. It was in one of our chapters. This is another one of Van Gogh's famous portraits. This is Dr. Gagé, I believe you pronounce it. He was the one who lived close by during Van Gogh's last year of his life, actually. And he helped him after Van Gogh left the psychiatric hospital. He was a close friend of Van Gogh's brother Theo as well. And Dr. Gagé told Van Gogh he encouraged him to follow his passion in art, and Van Gogh listened, and he was there for support as well. And this is an etching. This was in June 1890, and it's at the Van Gogh Museum, Amsterdam. And this portrait is actually another one that is in our textbook and that we read about in one of our chapters. This is the last portrait I am showing of Van Gogh. This was his room. It's actually called the bedroom, and this is where he lived, and he spent a lot of his time. And this is the bedroom in the yellow house, the last home he lived in before he committed suicide. It was a lodge where he lived with 3 other artists. This room was very important to him. He spent a lot of his time there as well. And this is oil on canvas in Arles, and he painted this October 1888. And this is the end of my art final. Thank you.